my sons and daughters.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aurora Smedley podcast, where I speak with you about what the world needs to hear. And in today's episode, I'm going to be discussing how to navigate uncertainty. So right now is a time where there is a lot of uncertainty, whether it is about our job security, about what we should be doing next, whether AI is going to take over, who has a handle of our data. There's so many things in our society right now that would cause even the most sane, stable, healthy person to feel unstable sometimes. And this is a challenge because the uncertainty causes us to also feel levels of anxiety, levels of internal instability as a result of this uncertainty. So there is a level of internal chaos or internal destabilization that comes about as a result of our uncertainty. So I am going to explore this idea of turning uncertainty into certainty, turning destabilization into stabilization, shifting any areas where we feel uncertain into areas where we have certainty, where we know where we're going, what we're doing, and what the path forward is, regardless of these many unknown factors in our day-to-day life. And so first, I'm going to speak to where does this uncertainty actually come from? And a lot of this has to do with simply the state of the world that we live in right now. We have a lot of technological advances. Change is happening at an unprecedented pace because of the internet. We're able to communicate faster, but this also means that change is happening faster, shifts are happening faster. There are transitions that are happening global, politically, as well as technologically and personally, that I think are unprecedented in the history of humanity. So there is simply a huge amount of change that is happening in today's world right now. In addition to this, I think that there's something that is a bit more perhaps insidious that is happening as well, which is that the way that we have information transmitted to us via our information network, i.e. social media, via news, via television, via radio, is highly inflammatory. The vast majority of the news, social media, etc., that we are receiving on a regular basis is intended to incite us, to inflame us, to anger us, to upset us, to make us feel afraid, to make us feel unworthy. And the reason for this is commercial motives, right? If we create a sense of lack, if we create a sense of fear, if we create a sense of fight or flight in somebody else, it means that they're going to fixate on us. And in today's attention economy, having that fixation of somebody else on us is so critical to us being able to maintain an audience and thereafter monetize that audience so that we can be a commercially viable enterprise. So in the case of virtually any news network, most social media or advertising, if you pay attention, you'll see that the majority of it is is worded with the intention to make you feel afraid, angry, or upset. And this is psychologically driven. When we approach things with anger or upset or fear, this activates the individual's amygdala, and this will cause the person to go into more of a fight or flight response, and this will cause them to fixate on us psychologically. Like I said, this is advantageous for commercial or news purposes, but the disadvantage is that it is highly destabilizing for us as an audience. So because of this, we are, through our information networks, being bombarded on a constant basis with things that will make us feel upset, or in other cases, feel unworthy, feel that we are lacking in some way. And this is a lot of social media. There's comparison biases that we have from watching these accounts that are kind of showing how beautiful we are, how rich we are, how much money we have, all these vacations that we're going on, and you should want that, therefore you should buy my product or buy these products that I'm representing. And so in a lot of advertising, the formula is that I create lack, I create a sense of a need in somebody else, and then I fill that need with a product. So I am creating a sense of unwholeness. I'm creating a sense of unworthiness in that individual in order to fill up their worthiness with something that they need to pay for. And so in this way, by creating a hole in somebody else's well-being, we are able to fill that with a product and extract monetary engagement from that person. So now I've gone over the external factors that really influence our ability to be stable and feel certain in an era of uncertainty and in an era that is projecting fear, shame, and unworthiness onto us for capitalistic gain. And, as a little PS to this, I'm not saying that capitalism is inherently bad, but what I am saying is that the means through which we are extracting capital from people as a society is generally psychologically damaging to those individuals. So going into my own life and my own relationship with uncertainty, something that I have experienced in my past is that I, for many years, was experiencing a lot of depression and suicidal ideation during a extended period of time. During this period of time, I had housing instability as well as financial instability. There were times that I couldn't pay for gas or for food. There were periods where I didn't know where I was going to live. I lived out of my vehicle for several months. And so during all of these periods of rapid change and instability in my life, something that I found was that I had to, in some way or another, generate a level of inner stability because my external world was not reflecting that stability that I was looking for. And even now, as I am in a better situation, but as I am pursuing my music career, I have found that in many other industries, there is a lot of certainty about how you generate income, how you create value for your audience, and how to progress forward in your career. Whereas I think that in music, the pathway to becoming a rock star is less straightforward. There is no one size fits all, and there is a different pathway for every individual for how they got to the level of fame or career success that they are going for. And so because of this, I have been feeling a lot of uncertainty as far as how to move forward, what things to be pushing forward on with my art, and how to do releases, how to fund those releases, what details I need to go in with the music videos. So there is a lot of uncertainty for me as I am getting ready to release my first releases next month. This past weekend, I was recording a music video, and I had a lot of stress leading up to it as far as all of the minuscule details that I was thinking about in relation to the video. So how then, in the face of all of these various uncertainties, do I find certainty? Do I find the next step forward? Do I find stability in all of this? And what I've found is that while being in a situation that is very uncertain, while being in a situation where you don't know how to move forward, you need to find your center of certainty. When we focus on the unknowns, we become uncertain, destabilized, and stressed. Whereas when we focus on the knowns, we feel centered and secure. And the thing is that the unknowns are infinite. So it's easy for us to become caught up in the unknowns because there's so many unknowns and those are all infinite. So it's easy to get caught up in that. Whereas the actual knowns in any situation is much smaller. But when we focus on these knowns, then we actually stabilize ourselves emotionally and psychologically and find our sense of certainty and stability and wholeness in all of that. And so for me, in regards to this music video and the releases that I'm leading up to, the way that I've been doing this has been focusing on what do I know that I want, even if I don't know how I'm going to get there. So in the case of all of this, it's like, I know that I want to have this many monthly listeners. I know that I want to produce music videos. I know that I want to release music. And so because of this, regardless of when the music video is released, regardless of when the music is released, regardless of the audience reception for the music, I know that regardless of all of that, I still need to make music videos. I still need to make social media content. And so because of this, I can focus on these things that I objectively must do in order to move the needle forward with everything. And another thing that I've found is that when there are so many possible directions, it's easy for us to get caught up in this uncertainty. Whereas if we focus on simply what the next step is, maybe I don't know what I'm going to do next. Maybe I don't know what is going to happen afterwards. Maybe there's all of these unknowns out there, but I know that for sure I have to, for example, get a music video done. And this distills the infinite into a finite, and that enables my brain to be able to process it. So I've so far discussed two different ways of addressing uncertainty. And the first is moving our focus from the uncertain to the certain. And then also from moving our focus from the infinite possibilities of what could be done to what is the next step. And so from this essential way of looking at things, we distill from the infinite the finite, and we can therefore move forward with this finite certain minority, which as compared to this infinite uncertain majority. It's kind of like there is what you know you don't know, and then what you don't know you don't know. And then when you get to that, it's like there's this tiny flame in the vast infinite darkness of the unknown. And so as we focus more closely on what we do know, what we do have certainty over, that enables you to transform the quote unquote uncertain into the certain simply by redirecting your focus away from the uncertain and into the certain. Something else that I have found is that oftentimes In my relationship with uncertainty, oftentimes the next step that I need to take is something that is on the other side of my fear and vulnerability. And that if there's a lot of uncertainty, if I'm feeling stuck, if I'm feeling destabilized, then oftentimes what I need to do is center in that certainty, like I said, and then look at the things that terrify me and move forward on one of those things. And sometimes I also need to choose something that scares me a little bit less so that I have a stepping stone to get me to the thing that scares me more. So something that was happening for me leading up to this particular music video shoot was that I was thinking about another video shoot as well. And that one was terrifying me and overwhelming me much more than this shoot was. And this one was still feeling challenging from a artistic level as far as how much I was putting myself out there. But it felt like I was putting myself out there less than the other video. And so because of that, by focusing on this one first and completing this one, I feel that I was able to almost like baby steps get my nervous system, get my system and my emotional world happy with this first step, so that my next step would feel less giant. It's almost like if I take 2 steps forward, then a 10-step leap feels less crazy because I've done the 2 steps before that already. So I've highlighted 3 ways to shift uncertainty by taking the infinite unknowable and distilling it into the finite certain, and then taking the infinite possibilities of possible actions and taking that into your one next step. And then finally, by addressing fear and going into fear, because on the other side of that fear is typically our greatest progress and our greatest personal and spiritual growth. And the final thing that I'm going to address with all of this is simply taking action. Because when we take action, we can often generate certainty. So sometimes we have to take action in order to have the reflection back from the universe as to what our next step is. So even if it's the wrong step, if you take a step forward in any direction, then you're going to get feedback as to whether that's right for you or not. So for example, if somebody's considering 2 different careers and they're kind of stuck between them, one thing that you can do is simply just start working towards one of those careers. And typically, if it's not the right thing, then your system is going to give you a redirect. And perhaps the answer is neither of those 2 careers, and maybe it's something else. So now that I've addressed these ways of transforming uncertainty into certainty, I'm going to discuss the impact to our psychological world when we are uncertain. Because something that I've found is that uncertainty leads to anxiety, leads to sleepless nights, leads to insomnia, etc. And this relationship to uncertainty is actually because we are trying to control all of the unknowns. We are trying to make all of the unknowns controllable. We are trying to make all of these unknown things known, when sometimes the unknown cannot be known, the outside is not controllable, and so we cannot find our sanity. We cannot find our sanity by looking externally for our stabilization, for looking externally for certainty. And that by distilling our certainty down to the internal, by distilling our certainty down to the small, finite set of what is certain, we enable ourselves to stabilize our internal and emotional world. And to create a metaphor for what I'm discussing, something that I've found, and I'm creating a metaphor from my experiences backpacking. But what I've found is that when many of us leave primary school, elementary, high school, etc., college, it's like we're getting off of these train tracks or this very directed pathway of progress in our lives. And then as adults, we need to do our wayfinding without this distinct trail. And so this is kind of similar to when you're in the wilderness, when you are just hiking on a set backpacking trail or hiking trail, versus when you need to navigate from point A to point B with no trail, or sometimes without even a map. And that experience of traveling through the wilderness is very different, because then you come into unexpected obstacles. There is not a set pathway, and you need to make your best judgment of how to get from point A to point B without having a predetermined pathway. So when I was hiking the PCT, when I was going through the Sierras, there was periods of time where I would lose the trail because it was covered with snow, and I would need to navigate without a map or without a trail. And so this meant that sometimes there was hazards like ice that you could fall through, or rivers that you would need to cross that didn't have a crossing point. And so there was all sorts of challenges that would come about from this, as well as trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B simply by looking at the topography, simply by looking at the horizon and being like, well, I'm going to that mountain and I need to figure out how to get over that mountain without there being a map. And it made the progress slower. It made things more challenging, but it was also quite empowering because it's a different way of engaging with the wilderness. And I do feel that it forces you to create that inner sense of certainty rather than relying on an external pathway that was handed to you. So now that I've given examples, I've talked about our relation to this psychologically, I've talked about how to create certainty from uncertainty. Now I'm going to get to some really specific language pointers which cause people to feel uncertain or certain. And the reason why I am pointing to these linguistic causes is that you can often diagnose your own sense of uncertainty or stability or someone else's uncertainty or instability through their linguistic expression. And also by shifting your language to being more certain, you are creating stability in yourself and other people, which enables you to come at things from a greater sense of inner power, inner stability, inner strength, inner certainty, and inner clarity than you would if you are using more uncertain language. So uncertainty language is things along the lines of, I might do this, if I do this, then this. I will try to do this. It's funny, even literally as I'm saying these words, I'm feeling more anxious. And what if this happens? Honestly, what if is like the source of all anxiety. What if this? What if that? That is the source of anxiety. And you can see that all of this is uncertain language. And uncertain language leaves things open-ended. Uncertain language leaves things kind of feel like they're floating. People start to feel anxious, uncertain, destabilized when you use this kind of language. Whereas certainty language is things like, I will, I am, it is, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want. I am not trying to do something. I'm doing something. Regardless of the circumstances, this is going to happen. I am doing something. I will do something. I am it already. And so you can see that there's definite linguistic pointers that are shifting people towards uncertainty versus certainty. And when you lean into more certainty language, you're actually leaning into more of your internal power. Whereas when you lean into uncertainty language, you are outsourcing your power externally. You are giving your energy and attention to circumstances that are outside of yourself, to possibilities that do not have to do with you and your agency. So this kind of language is what enables you and others to feel more stabilized regardless of the situation. So this has been a juicy episode, and I'm definitely looking forward to your thoughts on this. Thank you for following this podcast. Thank you for supporting my work, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next episode.